Welcome back to Silent Husband Club. We're sorry for the long silence, but we're officially back and we promise, from now on, a brand new story every single day. She came home glowing, like she just won the lottery, but the prize was something I never wanted. That night, everything I thought I knew about my wife began to unravel. It started with a surprise, and ended with a betrayal I never saw coming. If you enjoy deep, emotional stories with real consequences, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and keeps you in the loop for our daily stories. It all began the moment Eleanor burst through the front door like she just hit the jackpot. Her eyes were shining, her cheeks flushed from the cold, and she hadn't even taken off her coat when she announced, "Tonight, I've got a surprise for you." I looked up from the couch, raising an eyebrow. "What kind of surprise?" I asked, half curious, half dreading whatever was about to upend my quiet evening. But she just smirked, that secretive kind of smile she wore when she was hiding something big. "We're having guests. And they're bringing amazing news." Guests? That was already a red flag. We rarely had company, and even more rarely was it anyone bearing amazing news. Something about her tone, it wasn't just cheerful. It was charged. I chuckled, trying to keep it light. "Don't tell me one of your friends is pregnant again." She rolled her eyes and swatted me on the shoulder. "Idiot. No, it's something else. Something better." Then, in an instant, her playful mood shifted into command mode. "We need to clean. I want everything perfect." And just like that, my evening of rest turned into a whirlwind of scrubbing, sweeping, and stress. I didn't want to argue. I helped. We polished the kitchen until it looked staged for a magazine shoot. We set the table like royalty was coming over. Eleanor cooked as if she was feeding a small army. All the while, my mind kept spinning in circles. Who was coming? And why did she seem so giddy? The truth? I hate surprises. And this one didn't sit right. When the doorbell finally rang, I went to answer it, half expecting her parents, maybe a long-lost cousin. Instead, it was Grace and Claire, Eleanor's closest friends. Loud, fashionable, always ready to cause a scene. They swept into the living room like they owned the place, dropped their coats on the nearest chair, and threw themselves onto our sofa like we were the ones who owed them hospitality. Grace immediately fired off a joke, something crude, something about a group experience that I won't dignify by repeating. I must have made a face, because she and Claire burst into laughter like middle schoolers who knew they pushed the limit and enjoyed every second of it. Trying to keep the mood polite, I asked, "So what's the big news?" That's when it dropped. "We quit," Grace beamed. I blinked. "You, what?" "We quit our jobs," Eleanor said, like it was the most empowering thing in the world. My stomach turned. Eleanor had a great job. Remote options, flexible schedule, good pay. She was a graphic designer, creative, independent, respected. And she just threw it away? I kept my tone measured. "Why would you do that?" Eleanor shrugged, reaching for a wine glass. "I was bored. Tired of the same faces, same routines. I want more fun in my life." Fun. That word stuck in my head like a splinter. Fun? Since when did that become the metric for responsible adult decisions? I took a slow breath. "And what's the plan now?" Before she could speak, Claire jumped in. "We're going to a party in a few days. A friend of my boyfriend will be there. He has huge connections in a top company. He'll hook us up." I blinked again. That's the plan? Meet a rich guy at a party and hope he hands you jobs like candy? Claire winked. That's how the world works, Tom. My fists curled under the table. Have you considered that he might be a smug jerk who'll use you, then toss you aside? Grace rolled her eyes. You're such a buzzkill. This is happening, whether you like it or not. The party's in a few days. So be ready. In the days that followed, Eleanor was glued to her phone. Constant texts, calls, back and forth with her friends. The air was filled with perfume samples and giggling questions like, which dress makes the best impression? Every inch of me screamed, this is not just a job hunt. This is something else. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. You're not looking for respect, I said quietly. You're preparing to charm this guy into liking you. There's a difference. Eleanor didn't argue. She just said, maybe. But we're doing it anyway. And just like that, the night of the party arrived. We drove up to a mansion. Not a house. A mansion. Expensive cars lined the driveway like showroom models. Eleanor and her friends buzzed with anticipation. I stayed silent, my unease rising with every step toward the front door. Inside, the party was already roaring. And then there he was. Victor Hale. The golden connection. The man they were here to impress. He approached us with a smile that was too wide, too polished. He greeted the women with uncomfortably long glances and turned to me like I was an afterthought. We shook hands. And then he leaned in, just enough for me to hear him over the noise. If you really want to make an impression, he said, you might want to rethink your cologne. I stared at him. Hard. And if you want to make an impression, I said coldly, you might want to stop treating strangers like they're beneath you. The girls rushed in, laughing nervously, trying to smooth things over. Victor grinned and whispered, relax. I'm only being civil for your wife's sake. My jaw tightened. And that was the moment I knew. This night would not end well. The tension between Victor and me simmered just beneath the surface, like a pot threatening to boil over. And yet, Eleanor and her friends acted as if nothing had happened, laughing, clinking glasses, hanging on Victor's every word like he was some kind of prophet. I stood in the corner of the room, sipping a drink I barely tasted, watching the performance unfold. It was nauseating. They were all playing their roles so well, the eager hopeful circling their savior, and Victor, enjoying every second of being the center of their universe. The more I observed him, the more obvious it became Victor didn't just enjoy attention. He fed on it. He played the room like a conductor, every gesture calculated, every smirk rehearsed. He cracked jokes that weren't funny, made sweeping comments about vision and opportunity that were vague as hell, and yet people laughed. They nodded. They leaned in. And Eleanor? She was glowing. Not for me. For him. For the illusion of what he promised. I hated the way he looked at her, not like a potential employee, but like something to be acquired. Claimed. Then, just as I was considering leaving early and letting her enjoy her fantasy alone, Victor raised his glass and called for silence. I have an announcement to make, he said, voice loud and theatrical. Conversations dropped. Glasses froze in midair. And he let the silence stretch, just enough to make everyone squirm. Then, with that self-satisfied grin, he delivered the line, I'm happy to welcome some new, very special additions to our company family. These talented ladies, he gestured toward Eleanor, Grace, and Claire, are officially part of the team. The room erupted in applause. My wife gasped, then laughed, then cried. The three of them hugged each other like they'd just been drafted into royalty. I remained still. Because in that moment, while everyone else celebrated, I felt only suspicion. No interviews. No contracts. just to toast at a party, and suddenly they had jobs. That wasn't business. That was theater. And Victor? He was the director of a show that reeked of manipulation. Later, I stepped outside for air. I needed space, physical, emotional, everything. I lit a cigarette, trying to burn away the feeling crawling under my skin. A moment later, Victor joined me. He lit his own, leaned against the stone railing, and gave me a sideways glance. "You know," he began, "I might have been a bit hard on you earlier. But you should really loosen up. Your wife just landed the opportunity of her life. Probably even better than what you've got going on." I turned toward him, my expression flat. "I'm not here for you," I said quietly. "I'm here for my wife. And if you want people to respect you, maybe try treating them like human beings instead of chess pieces." He exhaled smoke through his nose, his grin narrowing. "Tough crowd. Well, I warned you." He flicked his cigarette and walked away, disappearing back into the noise and flashing lights. On the drive home, Eleanor was practically vibrating with excitement. She couldn't stop talking about the people she'd met, the project she'd heard about, the new world she was stepping into. "Wasn't it incredible?" she said, practically bouncing in her seat. "I feel like I've been sleepwalking through life until now." I said nothing. I gripped the wheel and kept my eyes on the road. She noticed. "Oh, come on, not again," she groaned. "Can't you just be happy for me? This was important and you acted like a jealous teenager." I clenched my jaw. If I had played along and smiled at every fake grin and condescending jab, I wouldn't be the man you married. If you want someone who just nods and stays quiet while being walked over, maybe you belong in that circle. She folded her arms and stared out the window. The rest of the ride was silent. But the silence didn't bring peace, it only thickened the tension between us, like fog that refused to lift. The days that followed were icy. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was short and functional. Still, I could feel the distance widening. Until one evening, Eleanor finally broke the silence. She sat beside me on the couch, eyes softer than they'd been in weeks. "I've been thinking," she said quietly. "Maybe I was too harsh. I shouldn't have dismissed how you felt." That was her version of an apology. I nodded. "It's okay," I replied. But it wasn't. When her first day at the new job came, she was giddy. Giddy. She got up early, dressed with extra care, applied her makeup twice, and dashed out the door with the kind of excitement I hadn't seen in years. That night, she came home glowing. "It was amazing," she exclaimed. "The office is gorgeous. Grace and Claire are in the same department. We're finally doing something exciting together." I was about to respond when she hesitated. "There's just one thing," she said, biting her lip. "You're not going to like it." I froze mid-bite. "What?" She paused. "Our department head is Victor. And his girlfriend, Viv, is his second in command." I put my fork down. Slowly. "The same Victor who mocked me in front of you? Who treats everyone like they owe him something? That Victor is your boss now." She raised her hands. "He's not my direct supervisor. He oversees things, but I don't deal with him every day." "And Viv?" "She just happens to be the deputy manager." "Huh?" I laughed bitterly. "Let me guess. She's just super qualified, right?" Eleanor's tone grew sharp. "You're being paranoid again. This is a good opportunity. I'm not quitting because of your feelings." I looked her dead in the eye. If he ever crosses a line ever, you tell me. And I promise he won't forget it. She rolled her eyes. You always expect the worst. I shrugged. No. I just expect you to protect yourself. She exhaled heavily, clearly done with the conversation. He's my boss. I can handle it. You don't need to get involved. But the feeling inside me, that slow, gnawing discomfort, only grew stronger. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. At first, I tried to convince myself that I was just overreacting. Maybe I was being territorial. Maybe I was letting my distrust of Victor cloud my judgment. I gave Eleanor the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to believe in her. I really did. She came home every evening buzzing with energy, rambling about creative projects, new software, innovative brainstorming sessions, and some cutting-edge marketing campaign they were developing for the city transit system. She was so immersed in it, so genuinely passionate, that I forced myself to push my suspicions down. But something kept tugging at the edge of my thoughts, like a thread that refused to unravel cleanly. Because no matter what she talked about, one name kept resurfacing: Victor. It was always Victor this, Victor that. His vision, his brilliance, his unmatched charisma. She quoted him like a damn philosopher. And every time I heard his name, my stomach knotted tighter. Then came the first team-building evening. Casual drinks after work. I didn't love the idea, but I didn't protest. One evening out wouldn't kill anyone. But then it was 2. Then 3. Then Eleanor started coming home later, always with a new excuse. We were finishing up a campaign, there was a client dinner, we got invited to a pop-up event. I kept my questions light at first, but the answers were vague, too practiced. I began watching. Quietly. Her phone buzzed constantly, and when she read her messages, there was a smirk she didn't even try to hide anymore. When she texted Claire or Grace, I could see it in her eyes: amusement, flirtation, complicity. But when she looked at me, there was distance. One night, as she touched up her makeup in the mirror before heading out again, I asked, "How many work events do you really have, Eleanor?" She paused, then glanced at me through the reflection. "It's networking. You wouldn't understand. You've never worked in a place this dynamic." The dig landed. She said it casually, but the sting was sharp. I crossed my arms. I understand that too much networking outside work hours blurs boundaries real fast. She rolled her eyes, applied one last stroke of lipstick, and said, "You always assume the worst. We're just having fun. That's all." But it didn't feel like just fun. She started coming home at midnight. Then later. Once, I called her after 1 a.m., no answer. I waited. I tried again, nothing. My mind filled in the blanks, whether I wanted it to or not. The next morning, she was silent and tired, but brushed it off like nothing happened. "Just a long night," she muttered, barely meeting my gaze. Then came the night of the company-wide celebration. She mentioned it over dinner like it was no big deal. "Everyone's going to be there. It's this huge event. They rented out a private venue." I nodded slowly, already on edge. "If something happens," I said carefully, "call me. No matter what time." She laughed, brushing me off. "You act like I'm heading into a war zone." "It's just a party, Tom." I didn't argue. I just watched her walk out the door, and that feeling, the one I tried to bury, rose like bile in my throat. The night dragged. I couldn't focus. I paced. Checked my phone. Midnight came and went. I called, no answer. Again. straight to voicemail. By the third call, I wasn't just worried. I was angry. Something was wrong. My gut knew it before my brain caught up. And then, finally, a vibration. But not from her. An unknown number lit up my screen. I hesitated. Then answered. A man's voice, slurred and gleeful, came through the line. "Hey, man, you won't believe what's happening right now. Your wife just got promoted, and boy, is she celebrating that like a champion. You should come join us, congratulate her properly." Then a cruel laugh. The line went dead. For a moment, I just stood there. Phone in my hand. Heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know who he was, but I knew exactly what he meant. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I walked. Calmly. To the garage. In the corner, behind some dusty old boxes, sat something I'd almost forgotten about, a large can of bear spray. A gift from my father, long ago. He'd said, better to have it and not need it, than need it and not have it. I grabbed it, felt its weight in my hand, and breathed in slow. I wasn't going there to start a fight. But I wasn't going unprepared either. The road blurred past me as I drove. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't wild. I was cold. Focused. And when I arrived at the venue, the so-called celebration, what I saw through the windows made everything inside me turn to ice. This wasn't a company party. This was something else entirely. Music pounded. The air reeked of sweat and alcohol. And through the shifting crowd, I saw it, Victor, lounging like a king in the middle of a leather sofa. Grace on one side. Claire on the other. And Eleanor, in his lap. Her head tossed back in laughter, her arm lazily draped around his shoulders. Her dress rumpled. Her hair a mess. My wife. The woman I'd scrubbed floors with. The woman I'd built a life for. Sitting there like a willing pawn in his twisted game. My hand slid into my coat pocket and found my phone. I tapped record. Because from that moment on, I wouldn't need to say a damn thing. The evidence would speak for itself. They didn't notice me at first. Why would they? They were too far gone, drunk on power, attention, and whatever else Victor had laced the evening with. The room was thick with arrogance. My fingers tightened around my phone as I slowly stepped inside. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I let the camera roll. I let it capture Eleanor's drunken laughter, Victor's arm possessively draped around her waist, the glass of champagne she raised with the elegance of a woman who had forgotten who she was supposed to be. And then, as if pulled by some invisible thread, Victor's eyes met mine across the room. He froze. Just for a second. Then, slowly, deliberately, he smiled. That smug, predatory grin. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," he said loud enough for half the room to hear. I didn't respond. I turned and walked away, back toward the entrance. My hand slid from the phone to the bear spray in my coat. The weight of it grounded me. No rage. No chaos. Just clarity. And something colder than fury, resolve. I stepped into the center of the main hall, where the music blared and the air was thick with perfume and sweat. I pulled the spray from my pocket, dropped it on the floor, and without hesitation, drove my knife into the canister. The reaction was instant. A violent hiss. Then a blast of pure hell. The bear spray exploded into the air like a chemical storm. People screamed. The music died. Bodies stumbled, clawing at their eyes, coughing, gasping, running. Chaos spread like fire. Some hit the floor. some pushed and shoved toward the doors. I stood there, unmoved, in the eye of the storm, watching everything unravel. Somewhere behind me, someone yelled. I didn't care. I turned and walked out through the front entrance, leaving the madness behind me, breathing in the clean, cold air like a man reborn. Back at home, I reviewed the footage. I didn't have to guess. I knew what I'd seen, what I'd felt. No more doubts. No more suspicions. Just truth, plain and raw. Eleanor's betrayal wasn't subtle. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a deliberate leap into a world she never once discussed with me, never once asked permission to explore. She had built a secret life on top of mine and assumed I'd never notice the weight of it crushing me beneath. I started packing her things the same night. Her clothes. Her jewelry. Her books. Every perfume bottle she'd ever worn. I bagged it all, dumped it in boxes, and carried them out to the trash behind the house. I went through our joint accounts and transferred what I could to a safe location, my safe location. Her login codes, keys, anything of shared access, I reset them all. She would come home to a different world. One where she no longer lived here. When she finally arrived, sometime after 3 a.m., her steps were unsteady. She smelled like wine and sweat. Her lipstick was smeared, her hair a mess. I'll explain everything tomorrow, she mumbled, barely conscious as I caught her before she collapsed. I didn't speak. I helped her into bed. Not out of love, out of restraint. I needed her sober. Fully alert. So she'd understand just how thoroughly her lies had burned this bridge. In the morning, she found me sitting at the kitchen table. I had the video queued up on my phone. I didn't say a word. I gestured for her to sit. She hesitated, then obeyed. I hit play. And then I watched her fall apart. Her expression shifted in slow, jagged stages: confusion, dread, disbelief. Tom. I can explain, she whispered. I raised a hand to silence her. Save it. Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't what it looked like. We were just having fun, nothing happened, I swear. I stared at her, cold and still. Don't insult me, Eleanor. I saw everything I needed to see. She reached out, desperate. Please. Please don't do this. We can fix it. You love me. I stood up. I love the woman I thought you were. She's gone. Her face twisted with panic. Then rage. You're throwing everything away over a party? Over a few drinks and bad decisions? No, I said. You did that. You chose him. You chose that world. And now, you can have it. She lunged from the table, knocking a mug to the ground. It shattered. She didn't care. You're cold. You're heartless. I gave you everything. You gave me lies, I said quietly. Now leave. And when she hesitated, when she thought maybe I'd break, maybe I'd still love her enough to forgive, I opened the front door and said it again, slower. Leave. She gathered her things, trembling, cursing, crying. And then, she was gone. For the first time in months, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Eleanor's presence had left a kind of echo behind: ghosts of perfume on the pillow, faint lipstick stains on a forgotten glass, a jacket she'd left draped over the back of a chair. I threw it all out. Everything. I cleansed the space of her, like tearing out a cancer. And still, for a while, the silence rang in my ears like a punishment. I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. A woman like Eleanor didn't just walk away. She clawed her way back somehow, she always did. So I waited. And sure enough, the knock came. It was a week later. I saw her through the peephole, disheveled, tear-streaked, her voice trembling as she pleaded from the other side of the door. "Tom, please, let me in. We need to talk. I made a mistake. We can fix this." I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I stood there in silence, watching her fall apart through an inch of glass. When the pleading turned to shouting, then to sobbing, and finally to silence, I knew she was gone. For now. The peace that followed was thin and fragile. It didn't last. A few nights later, I was woken by the unmistakable smell of smoke. At first, I thought it was a nightmare, some twisted dream fueled by stress and anger. But the smell was real. Sharp. Acidic. I bolted from bed and ran to the front door. Flames licked the wood around the frame. Panic surged in my chest as I grabbed the fire extinguisher and fought to kill it before it took hold. My hands shook as I hosed down the blaze, coughing through the haze. It could have killed me. Burned the whole place down. Once the fire was out, I went straight to the security system and pulled the footage. And there she was, Eleanor. Crouched outside like a feral thing, lighter in hand, her face twisted in something between rage and despair. The next morning, I filed a police report and handed over the footage. They didn't waste time. She was arrested, charged, and given a hefty fine that would follow her for years. I didn't even have to testify. The video was enough. After that, I never saw her again. Not in person. She vanished into whatever shadows she crawled into, and I didn't care to chase them. In the weeks that followed, I found myself rebuilding more than just my house, I was rebuilding me. I went through every room and changed things. Moved furniture. Repainted walls. Burned old bed sheets. I made the space mine again. The quiet, once suffocating, began to feel like calm. I read. I cooked. I sat outside at dusk and listened to the wind without waiting for my phone to buzz. And slowly, piece by piece, I came back to life. Then one day, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. "Tom?" A woman's voice asked. Hesitant. Soft. "It's Vivian. Victor's ex." I didn't say anything at first. Just waited. "I saw the video," she said. Her voice cracked slightly. "What you sent me. I just want to say thank you. For not letting me live in a lie any longer." I still didn't speak. She took a breath. "Victor's gone. Fired. The board found out everything. The parties, the manipulation, the bribes, it's over. They needed someone to take over the department. I took the job." Finally, I spoke. "Congratulations." She paused. "I know this is strange, but we need good people. People who still know the difference between right and wrong. If you're ready, I'd like to offer you a place here. Clean slate. Fresh start. No strings." I didn't say yes right away. I thought about it for 2 full days. Then I called her back. And I said yes. Not because I needed a job, but because I needed to win. Not against Eleanor. Not even against Victor. But against the version of myself that had once sat quietly while his world collapsed around him. Now I wasn't that man anymore. The first day at the new job felt like walking into the heart of a place that had once tried to devour me. Same building. Same always. But the air felt different, cleaner, steadier. Vivian greeted me at the entrance, firm handshake, sharp eyes. She'd changed too. No longer the quiet shadow behind Victor. Now, she stood like a woman who had buried her past and built something solid over the wreckage. She walked me through the department, introduced me to new team members, and laid out the projects on the table. No games. No side eyes. Just business. And respect. Real, earned respect. But the ghosts lingered. I saw them in the corners, memories of Eleanor laughing in that lobby, Victor's voice echoing off the glass walls, the scent of that party clinging to phantom corridors. I didn't try to chase those memories away. I let them come. Let them pass. Because they didn't own me anymore. As days turned to weeks, the rhythm settled in. I found purpose again, not just in the work, but in the discipline of it. Mornings with coffee and silence. Projects that challenged me, not drained me. Conversations with people who spoke plainly, not in manipulation. Vivian proved to be a fair leader. Tough, but honest. We didn't talk about the past much. Once or twice, late in the evenings when the office was nearly empty, she'd pause and say, "I still wonder how I didn't see it sooner." I didn't answer. I understood the shame in hindsight. We both carried our scars quietly. Eleanor never reached out again, not after the fire, not after the arrest, not after the job. Whatever fantasy she'd built collapsed the night she tried to burn her way back into my life. And I had nothing left for her. No hate. No bitterness. Just silence. A silence I now wore like armor. Months later, as I stood by the window of my new apartment, smaller, neater, a place that was truly mine, I thought about everything that had happened. The man I was then, he would have forgiven her. He would have begged her to stay, just to avoid sleeping alone. But not this version. Not the man I'd become. That night, I wrote down one sentence in a notebook and left it open on the table. You never lose when you walk away from something that poisons your soul. It wasn't a lesson I wanted to learn, but I'm damn glad I did.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, shocked you, or simply made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, your thoughts, your story, your truth. Subscribe for more raw, real, and unforgettable confessions. And if this story made you feel seen, share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. You're not alone here. This channel is a safe space for those who've been betrayed, broken, and rebuilt.